Hello, welcome to News Centre. I'm Parikshit Luthra. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has unveiled the government's National Logistics Policy 2022. The policy, which aims to promote seamless movement of goods and enhancing competitiveness of goods, focuses on bringing down India's logistics cost, currently at 13 to 14% of GDP, to around 8% by the year 2030, in sync with global practices. Apart from an interface platform to monitor cargo movement, the policy also looks at developing logistics parks, benchmarking service standards, standardization of physical assets, among others. Can the policy become a game changer? Can the structural deficiencies in the system be done away with? We're now joined by Amritlal Meena, Special Secretary in the Ministry of Commerce, who is spearheading this policy, Shubhrakant Panda, who is the Senior Vice President at the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. We're also joined by Anil Gambhir, CFO of Blue Dot, and Mihir Shah, partner at EY India. Mr. Meena, let me begin by talking to you. Everyone agrees that, yes, this policy is in the right direction, but they also want to see the fine print, the implementation roadmap. By when will this policy document get cabinet approval? By when do you think it will be implemented? And what aspects of this policy will need concurrence of the states?
Yeah, thank you very much. See, the policy has been launched, and this policy has been formulated with extensive consultation with the industry stakeholders and concerned ministries. So the policy document along with the policy framework also has comprehensive logistics action plan, which is action agenda for rollout of this policy. To achieve the targets set in the policy, the action items in the comprehensive logistic action plan are defined and the timelines are defined. So now with launch of the policy, already the unified logistics interface platform, the multimodal digital connectivity platform has been launched. Already we have pilot tested with the logistics service players, and now this is available. Similarly, the ease of logistics services, another action point to facilitate resolution of the issues of the logistic industry associations. It is also created and now the portal is available. We will shortly be registering all the industry associations, particularly the logistics sectors industry associations. They will be facilitated to raise the issues which are impacting their efficiency and performance. And we will resolve them through the mechanism of the systems improvement group. The training and the sectoral plan for efficient logistics and various other action items works is already on, and it is ongoing activity now.
Right. So you're saying that many aspects of the policy are already up and running, and there are yearly benchmarks for each of the aspects. Let me get in Shubhrakant Panda. Shubhrakant Panda, to bring the Indian logistics system in line with practices in South Korea, Singapore, the United States, and certain European countries, what do we need to do, and how does this policy compare to what you see in some of these nations?
Good evening, Parikshit. I think it's a very welcome development because after a lot of focus on improving the ease of doing business in India, there is now concrete action towards the cost of doing business, which indeed the Honorable Prime Minister has referred to several times, or more than several times. And I think this is a step in that direction, because as you just pointed out in the data at the beginning of the program, the logistics cost in India is at present is around 14% or so of GDP. And according to the logistics index put out by the World Bank in 2018, that ranked us around 44th amongst countries in the world. And obviously, this is something which does affect our competitiveness when it comes to exports. So, given the focus which has been brought into infrastructure projects in general through the Gati Shakti program, what I believe the national logistics policy will now do is bring greater focus on logistics through world-class infrastructure and other physical assets, etc. So as to, I believe the aim is to get into the top 25 countries by 2030 by bringing down logistics costs to about 8% of GDP, which would be at par with most modern economies. And what I like about this approach is that it's not only comprehensive, but it also has impressive degree of granularity. So, for example, there is at the macro level, as I said, there is the target to bring down logistics costs to single digits in terms of GDP. But there are sector-specific plans. And keep in mind, when you look at something like steel, when we're looking to double our steel output from 150 odd million tons to 300 million tons, the requirement to move raw materials, etc., is many times that of the actual steel output. And similarly, the granularity aspect that I was talking about is specific targets like reducing the container turnaround time from 44 hours to 26 hours. So this policy is both a combination of both the macro as well as the micro. And I believe it will put us on the path to significantly improving India's competitiveness, because I believe what has been estimated is a 10% decrease in logistics costs can lead to export growth of 5 to 8%.
All right. Anil Gambhir, just to get your view in and Blue Dart's view on the national logistics policy, now that this policy document is out, what would be your perspective? What would you be looking out in terms of the implementation of this policy? And while there is no immediate investment that this policy needs, what kind of infrastructure investments do we need in future in order to fully allow the industry to benefit from this policy when it comes to our ports, when it comes to our road infrastructure, rail infrastructure?
So good evening to all of you. While at the outset, let me say this is the most agile policy of recent time, where it not only looks at reducing cost of logistics, but also look at how efficiency can be improved. And we just heard other panelists' view where talk about how efficiency would be improved in terms of turnaround time. Having said that, I think currently policy which at a macro level puts emphasis on all-round improvement in turnaround, in cost, in bringing all the stakeholders on one platform, thereby ensuring that turnaround time is faster, information availability is faster, and as a result, efficiency is improved. And also, in addition to there's a focus on on the softer side as well, wherein there's a provision for improving in resources availability as time goes by, because when the sector grows, there'll be demand for resources, and provision has been made for that by improving resource availability. From infrastructure investment point of view, I think there's a lot more investment which has already been provided for in the recent budget, and I think going forward also, I'm sure government would not leave any stone unturned to make sure that investments which are required are made for the policy, both in terms of road infrastructure, rail infrastructure. We are all aware that dedicated road corridor and freight corridor all are coming up. And in addition to that, the focus on waterways also has been there. And also government has been focused on improving current airports and also adding newer airports. So I think in all, there's a huge whole lot of investment which government is making, and we know that there's a multiplier effect of that. So I'm sure in times to come, there will be a lot more private investment will come in to exploit this infrastructure which is being built up to improve logistic network in India. Having said that, now if we need to move from logistic to private sectors, I think many of the sectors are looking forward to this initiative so that the Make in India or the China Plus One policy which government has been talking about is implemented successfully, and that's where organization would work for that.
Right. Mihir Shah, do you feel that, because in the last few years, the focus has been on building resilient supply chains, do you think this will bring more transparency in the supply chain availability, help to monitor logistics better at every stage, also at different parts of the country?
So, Parikshit, absolutely yes. The importance of visibility across the supply chain is one of the key issues that we have today from a sector point of view. And through ULIP and many other digital initiatives that the policy really talks about, the whole objective is to ensure that we have resilience and reliability of the supply chain, And second is visibility as to where the current shipment is currently located, both in terms of all modes of transport. So today, you really have some sort of visibility on your containers, which are moving through road or rail. How do you ensure that we have end-to-end visibility on all modes of transport across all commodities? So I think the policy, when it talks about digitization and it talks about the availability of telecom infrastructure across the country to ensure visibility and also traceability, that's another element of what the policy really talks about is traceability. And I think these are very, very important points when it comes to supply chain resilience and also reducing the cost of logistics, because you have lesser amount of capital which is stuck in your inventory and you're able to work in a more just-in-time kind of a framework.
Right. Mr. Meena, India has a large number of small fleet operators. So how will you ensure that they are integrated with this new platform, especially because you're going more digital? There will be a common platform to harmonize all ministries together, harmonize submission of documents in one place. So how will you ensure that some of the smaller fleet operators in the country, which also are a large section of the logistics providers, how will they be integrated with the system?
This unified logistics interface platform, it basically is an integration platform where around 30 digital systems talk to each other. Any logistic company, whether it's large scale or the small scale or the medium scale, depending on their operations and the requirement, can work out the APIs based on which the data can be obtained and utilized for their requirement. This platform is now available to all the users on non-disclosure agreement basis. So far, many of the digital operators, many of the logistic companies and the IT companies have had the access. They have developed the applications and they are finding these applications to be very useful. For example, as have been discussed about the visibility and the track and trace. So many of the applications like track your cargo, track your transporter, track the mode of transport, and empty container visibility, all these applications have been developed, tested and found to be useful. So small logistic companies and also the IT companies can utilize this data, develop useful applications and gain out of it. Through ULIP, we are sure that in times to come, very useful applications will be developed, which will be useful not only for one company, but for the sector as a whole. Many use cases will get developed, which will add to lesser inventory cost and faster efficiency. The secured logistic document exchange agent would be the product of this whole exercise, which will facilitate faster movements of the document across the place of origin to the destination.
All right. Mr. Panda, just to speak to you about maybe certain investment interventions that we would need over the years. When it comes to debottlenecking ports, we see the size of ports in China and we see the size of ports in India. Do you think we need to focus on infrastructure at ports, increasing the size of ports so as to also become so as to rise as one of the top 10 or 20 countries in the logistics supply chain index?
Certainly, I think a lot of investment is called for and is being planned. But let me again go back to the point I referred in my earlier intervention about Gati Shakti. That is where a lot of focus is going into coordinating investment, the overall investment that is going into creating infrastructure. Because whereas earlier there were repeated attempts, first a port would be developed, then the roads would be developed, then you would lay pipelines or you would lay telecom infrastructure. What Gati Shakti brings about is that there is a unified approach and what is created is something which is world-class and has impact right away. But that apart, I don't think there's any doubt about it that we need to significantly upgrade our infrastructure, and I believe that's exactly what the government is aiming for. And this policy also envisages that the multimodal transportation mix will change, which is overwhelmingly road right now, about 60%, if I'm not mistaken, to switch to a mix of about 45% by road, 40% by rail, and 15% by coastal shipping and inland waterways. So that is something which will, to enable that to happen, of course, the investment is called for, as you rightly pointed out, and I acknowledge. But that apart, I think a lot of other investments is also being looked at, which is multimodal logistics hubs being created and cold storage facilities at I think 30 out of 40 new cargo terminals, etc. So yes, again, I think what the national logistics policy does is both look at the macro as well as the micro, have larger goals and granularity of details, so that there is a clear plan of action as to where we are and where we want to be and how do we get there.
All right. We'll take a short break, but we'll request Mr. Amrit in conversation with Amritlal Meena, Special Secretary of Logistics at the Commerce Ministry. Also on the show, Shubhrakant Panda, Senior Vice President at FICCI, Anil Gambhir from Blue Dart, and Mihir Shah from EY India. Mihir, when we speak about the move from road transport to rail transport, do you think we need immediate focus on increasing freight speed from 25 kilometers per hour to possibly 50 kilometers per hour? Do you think we need a clear roadmap on that front as well?
Yes, Parikshit, I think the roadmap is already laid out. If you see the investment that the government of India has been making on both the western and the eastern dedicated freight corridors, the objective is essentially to speed up and create a dedicated line for movement of cargo. So I think it's only a matter of time that the two lines and freight corridors are essentially made operational. And then you will essentially see the freight movement speed really significantly going up. There's whole discussion around also double stack containers so that you can carry double the amount of containers on the same level of track. So I think the roadmap is already there. I think with the policy, the implementation, as the Prime Minister said yesterday, policy plus performance is results. And I think the performance is already in action to a great extent. And also, I think it's not just the western and the eastern freight corridors that are being currently planned. I think there are multiple other freight corridors which are also being planned, which will essentially help in the shift of having a higher share of the rail, which will essentially go towards achieving the objective of the policy, which is to reduce the cost of logistics to close to 8%. So I think we are already in a phase of action. Right. And I think over a period of time, we will see that target being achieved for sure.
Right. Mihir, considering our global ambitions and a view to play a greater role in global supply chains, could our targets have been more ambitious?
I think where we come from, I think the desire to go down to 8%, although let me say that the cost of logistics for India, has varied over a period of time across multiple studies. And currently the number that is talked about is 14%. So I think to go from 14% to 8% is itself a significant element. If you see global benchmarks, the US is close to 8%, China is in double digits. I think what really matters, Parikshit, is that in addition to the percentage, we also have
rather
to look
than
at
reaching
the
top 25 by 2030, top 25 by 2030, do you think that target should have been faster?
I think, it doesn't stop us from aspiring to be much faster, to be honest. And in LPI, for example, we are currently 44. But I think what people don't know is the amount of effort and work that is already going behind doors by Government of India, by CBIC, etc. So as we speak, the 2022 LPI survey has just been launched as we speak. So I think we will soon see as to where we stack up and to what extent do we go closer to 25 and if not higher. So I think a lot of action is already happening. So wait and watch.
Okay. All right. Anil Gambhir, finally, will Blue Dart making additional investments now in order to utilize this policy, comply with some of the new terms of this policy?
Definitely, when this policy will smoothen movement of goods and services through improved infrastructure, I think that will create a higher demand. And for cater to having higher demand, obviously there will be need for enhancing the capacity. for carrying the shipments or the volume which will be generated through improved business scenario. So I think Blue Dart will not be lagging behind in terms of whatever investment it requires to bring the fruit or to exploit the policy fruits. We will not be lagging behind. We'll be in fact ahead of the curve, investing money for improving the infrastructure to handle the improved volume.
All right. My final question to Mr. Amritlal Meena. Mr. Meena, the government and officials like you, while preparing this policy, have thought about every aspect of the supply chain and how to digitize this and also harmonize the submission of documents as well. Now, give us a direction as to where will India's focus be in terms of developing infrastructure, logistics infrastructure in the country to fully utilize the potential, make it easier for supply chains to move and also achieve these global benchmarking targets that you've set for yourself in this policy?
Yeah, see, the logistic cost depends on the four major factors. The transportation, which my colleagues have already discussed about the infrastructure that is being created across different modes of transportation, including rail, Western dedicated freight corridor, Eastern dedicated freight corridor. And apart from that, the critical missing links are being double lines, and then port connectivity projects have been identified which are critical to improve the efficiency of the cargo movement. The network of the express highways is being developed, bypass roads are being developed to ensure speed and efficiency. And to complement these infrastructure, telecom network, gas pipelines, power, all sector, massive work under PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan is being done. Every ministry has targets to be achieved by 2024-25 and work are underway. So with massive investment and the progress in the infrastructure, then the second component is the warehousing. Through this policy, we have developed standards for the warehousing and related physical assets through Warehousing Association of India and the financial institutions. Slowly and gradually, the global standards in the warehousing and related physical assets would be promoted that will bring in interoperability and reduce cost and bring in efficiency. Through the digitization, the tracking and tracing will improve, which will reduce time and increase the efficiency. And of course, the documentation will become digitized, so we will be able to have the clearances faster. So the entire ecosystem which affects the logistic cost have been attempted through the PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan and this National Logistics Policy. All components have been taken care of, and there is a very strong coordination mechanism at the national level where the empowered group of secretaries have been set up at the level of cabinet secretary with all relevant secretaries as members. Similar institutional arrangement have been set up at the state level. In fact, I am happy to say that all the states have set up their empowered group of secretaries. About 14 states have already come out with the state logistics policies. Others are in the process of finalizing the policy. So center and state both are focusing on the logistics. So the effort will definitely bring in result, and the cost, the targets which we have set for reducing the cost from the current level of 13% of GDP to the global benchmarks by 2030 and to be among top 25 countries in terms of LPI ranking. We are hopeful that this policy and PM Gati Shakti NMP will be able to give that result.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Amritlal Meena, Shubhrakant Panda, Anil Gambhir and Mihir Shah for joining us here on News Center, explaining us the Logistics Policy 2022. That's all we have time for on CNBC-TV18. Stay tuned for more.